Hello, all my fellow aviators. Welcome back to another episode of the Fly with Trent Show. This is going to be another interview that I think you're really going to enjoy. My guest on this particular episode is a fellow by the name of Noah Cohen. And what Noah has done in his career is much like me. He started as a career 2.0 pilot. A little later in life, I think he was at 40 when he started. And he took a very interesting path. He didn't become a CFI. He went into the Part 91 world really early on. And when you watch this interview, you're going to learn about some of the networking strategies that worked very well for him, how he got to fly a Vision Jet very early on, how he got himself into some really great opportunities, again, in the Part 91 world, having never been a CFI and not having a whole ton of hours. Noah is a big believer in paying it forward, and that's why he wanted to be on the show. So please join me in welcoming Noah to the show. Hey, Noah, thank you so much for making some time to come and be on the Fly with Trent show to share with aspiring pilots and pilots who are not as far along in their journey some insights based upon your experience, some tips, and some strategies to help pay it forward, as it were. And we're going to divide our time together up into three phases, folks. We're going to talk about Noah's time in flight school. Then we're going to talk about the time building phase. Then we're going to talk about his current job as a corporate pilot. So, Noah, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I'm excited.
All right, I'm excited too. So let's jump into the flight school phase first. You, like me, started flying as a professional pilot a little later in life. You don't look like you're in your 20s. So when did you start? When did you start your flight training?
I started my flight training in July of 2018. Actually, I was 40 because I turned 41
In the middle of flight
2018.
school.
So I was 40
Okay.
when I started. Yeah.
Okay.
In December I turned 41. So I thought it was a little late to be starting at that time. Your channel wasn't around, and I've enjoyed watching your channel because I think it gives a lot of people a path forward, a lot of hope for people that are a little bit older and in their second career.
Mm-hmm.
Career 2.0, as you like to call it, which is exactly what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So
So when you decided to go to flight school, did you train full time or part time? First question.
um, I trained part time because I owned a business. I owned a woodworking business with my family,
Mm-hmm.
family owned company that grew to a mid sized business. And just through some life changes, I realized got I always had wanted to fly, and our company actually before I was way back, I used to work in EMS, and I worked with a corporate pilot. Became friends with him. His name was Tommy. His name will come up later. I got permission from him to use his name, and we used in our cabinet business. We would have to go to remote locations sometimes, and so we used pilots to get us around. And I always wanted to sit up front with a pilot, and I always thought it was pretty cool what they did. And so I'd talk to Tommy like, yeah, I'd like to do this. He goes, no, you'll make a lot more money. Just own your own business. And then as I got to just through life, I thought I was going to be uh, taking over our company and be CEO. And I started realizing that's just not who I am. And I'm like, I really want to be a pilot. So I talked it over with my wife, and she supported me. And my dad has always been he supported me through this. And I started looking into flight schools, and I had become financially uh, not wealthy, but we were living very comfortable, and I could afford flight school. So I started with Tommy, and I asked him, and one of the things I learned from owning my own business, networking and having mentors is very very important. Is find the most successful person and who you want to be, and then ask them if they will mentor you. A lot of people love that. Be straightforward about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use that technique because that's how we built our business to become very successful. And the company was debt free, and we did very well. So we called them mountain guides in our business. And so um, I kind of took the business side and I wrote a real simple 1-page plan. We use that in our business, just real simple plan of where you want to go. And I called Tommy up one day. I said, Tommy, I'd like to be a pilot, and would you mentor me? And he was absolutely delighted. He goes, absolutely. He said, I'd love that. And he's like, you're going to love this. We'll go to Turks and Caicos. We'll have fun, and it's going to it'll be a fun ride. So I found a Part 61 school in Lebanon, Missouri. And at that time, I was able to rent a Piper Warrior for $90 an hour wet, which I don't know if you can still do that these days. And I just hit it really hard. I didn't really, I didn't have any, as far as I didn't have a plan, kind of like what you did. I just started flying, and I was flying a lot. But I still had a job to do. But since I owned my own business, it was flexible.
Hmm. Let
So
me
I just worked long hours. Yep, sure.
let me interrupt you if I may, because there's some questions that my audience
Hmm.
will be mad at me if I don't
Okay.
ask you. So
Okay.
let's talk first of all. If someone wants to find a Tommy, a mentor, what are
Mhm.
some actions that they could take this week to try and make that happen?
So there's some resources out there. Obviously try to find people you already know that are in your network. But if there isn't, if you NBAA has it's a resource, you can join them, which is one thing I did, and they actually have a mentorship program. So there's people on there from Walmart, Pepsi, Coke, flight departments, some of the really big flight departments, and they love to help people out.
And
And
say the name
so
of that place
that's
again.
that's one. It's called NBAA. So it's the National Business Association. So this is more, my frame of reference is corporate. I don't know a lot about airlines. So if you wanted to become an airline, I just, the website is just nbaa.org, and it's known among corporate guys as NBAA. There's some good resources there. It's a little pricey to sign up for it, and I don't remember what it would cost as far as they have different options. But that's a good resource. And obviously before I came along, there's some good YouTube channels that talk about mentoring people. I don't really know a lot about them, but I know there's people out there. So
Okay.
and you know, just start asking your network. Say, hey, do you know any pilots? And
Hmm.
then you just start asking around. And I found when you start talking to your friends and saying, look, I'd like to become a pilot. And, you start talking about it. Usually somebody will say, you know what? I have this friend,
Hmm.
he's here, would it be okay if I contact him? I was talking to my uncle one day and he goes, we have a friend of ours that's, a captain for one of the major airlines. I don't remember which. He goes, why don't you give him a call? He would love to talk to you. And so that's just, I'm kind of a big networker. Uh, just that's what I had to do in my old job is to get when we would go and get a cabinet job. We found the best jobs were gotten by word of mouth and going in maybe through the back door, not going through the conventional way. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people, I see all these guys. They sent their resume to 100 different companies, and that doesn't make you stand out. And so I found that people like relationships. Um, and the other thing with when you just be straight up, ask them if they'll mentor, but try to find ways to provide value to them because there are things maybe they need help with. Like I was, I'm really good with technology, and so I offered to help Tommy with the tech side of things. Whether it is maybe he needed some help with his home printer
Hmm.
or a lot of times corporate pilots need to get around the country, and if you have access to a plane, they will pay for your gas and take them where they need to go, and then pick their brain along the way. And then be grateful, show appreciation, say thank you so much. I
Hmm.
used to, when I would ride with Tommy, I would tell him every time I fly with you, I try to find one thing that I could learn from you on every single trip, and people like that when you do that. I believe. and sincerely. You don't just flatter them.
Yeah.
Sincerely, you know, show grateful appreciation.
If you're enjoying this video and finding value, you're definitely going to want to join the Fly with Trent weekly newsletter, where I share tips, tricks, and strategies on how to get yourself from where you are now to the flight deck in as little time as possible for the least amount of expense possible. And to do that, just head over to flywithtrent.com. And that,
And
that bit that you mentioned about offering to help them with something,
mhm,
that's been a recurring theme in anytime I've ever heard an interview that had anything to do with networking or building relationships with people. Um, Everybody's got problems, and so to be
mhm,
curious, you ask questions and you can find out what some of those problems might be, and people are going to love you for helping them solve their own problems. So it can become a two-way relationship. The one thing that I think is probably the worst approach, and I get this happens to me a lot, probably due to the popularity of the channel, is I'll get a message, "Hey
mhm,
Trent, can we hop on a call so I can pick your brain?"
mhm.
So
Yeah.
maybe don't take that particular approach when you are seeking a mentor, because in that way, the mentor feels like who wants to have their brain picked? It doesn't sound
Sure.
nice. It doesn't feel good. Um, and it's a very much a one-way street because you're not giving value back to the person who is your mentor. So
Totally,
N-
totally agree with
NBAA,
that. And mhm.
go ahead if you
Yeah,
wanted to
and
add
those
something.
those yeah, NBA, they those guys have signed up for it. And Tommy and I have known each other for it's probably 20 years. So, or I guess as of today, somewhere around 20 years. So at that point, I knew him very well. So I knew him well enough that I could ask. But I would just ask people that, the best mentors are come from the people you know.
Yeah,
Hitting up some stranger, like you said, that can feel a little off-putting. Kind of feels like they're just trying to use you and trying to just take something from you for free.
yeah.
So,
So
um,
So let's talk about selecting the flight school, because that's an area where a
mhm,
lot of people can make big, expensive mistakes without knowing they're making a big, expensive mistake until they've already wasted a bunch of time and a bunch of money because they didn't pick the right flight school. Having been through the process now, what advice would you give someone about, and I'm just going to call it training partner, because it could be a flight school, it could be an independent
sure.
flight instructor. So what advice would you give someone about selecting a training partner?
Well, what I ended up doing is I started asking around, trying to see which flight schools were in my area. I wasn't able to travel to any of them, so I had, heard of some of the big ones out there. And what I came to find out is when when you're getting interviewed for a job, nobody cares what school you go to. All they care about is your ratings and the quality of your time. They could care less whether it's a 61 or 141. And so I interviewed two flight schools. I went and interviewed one, and the instructor, he just told me, he's like, I don't have a lot of time. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me. I went to this other school that was owned by a doctor, and him and I hit it off. And there was a couple flight instructors there, and I told them I want to go straight through. And I worked a deal out with him. If I'd buy blocks of 20 hours, he'd give me a deal on the airplane. So
Mm-hmm.
every month I would pay, and that saved me money to do it that way. So I went totally 61, did my own self study, um, and that worked great for me. Um, because nobody cares. And now for the company I work for, um, I'm one of the guys that's responsible for the hiring. I'm not the only guy, but whenever I interview new candidates, I could care less where they went to flight school.
Mm-hmm.
So I look strictly at. There's a couple things, I look at them as a person. Would I want to be in the cockpit with them? And then I start looking at the quality of their flying. You know.
Tell me about that. What is the difference between good quality flying and not good quality flying in your eyes?
So bad quality time would be if somebody is uh, falsifying their logbook. So
Yeah.
if they're flying around right seat in a oh maybe like a King Air or like a single pilot airplane that can't be legally flown, and they're logging SIC time. To me, that's not good quality. That's good experience, but and it's fine to log it, but put it in a separate column and be straight up about it and say, "Listen, I've got this time. I realize it doesn't count, but it counts towards my experience."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've seen people that their logbooks were very sloppy, and I got to be careful because there was one guy that I don't know if he'll watch this. I hope he doesn't. Um, but his quality of time was he would fly for long periods of time, and when we looked compared his times to what was in FlightAware, they were off by quite a bit, and there was extreme. There was like 12 hours a day, and I'm like, 12 hours a day is really hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't know if
So,
this should end up because I don't want to shame the guy.
so he was doing some
But
pencil
that
whipping.
there's some he was so what he was doing is doing his flight planning while the engine was running, or if there was weather delays, he'd just sit there with the engine running and intentionally running the clock up.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, but the other thing, as far as times, for us, I'd like to see somebody having a little bit of jet time. I'd look to see, look at their job history. Are they hopping around quite a bit? Are they getting a new job every 2 years? Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it depends on what position we're hiring. If I'm hiring for a latitude captain, then I'm going to want to see some PIC multi jet time, and there's certain hours. If we're hiring for a vision jet guy, I'm looking for a guy with 1,500 hours and somebody that seems real squared away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Somebody that knows that's good with technology because those are flying laptops.
That they are. Yeah, I've never flown one in the
So
real world, but I've flown one in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and they're absolutely a gas to fly.
yeah,
All right,
and
so
I don't know, sometimes yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead and finish.
I was going to say you can look at too some what we'll look at sometimes if somebody comes here and they've got a flip phone, we're probably not going to hire them because these airplanes are so sophisticated that you know um, you need somebody that's good with tech.
Mm-hmm.
They got an iPhone, Android, whatever, it doesn't matter. But so I got to be
So
careful about that. Maybe that shouldn't get out on the internet. I don't know. So uh,
so before we move on out of the flight school phase of our conversation, with respect to your experience in flight school, now that it's behind you, um,
mhm.
was there anything that was either a real surprise to you, either in a good way or a bad way, so that if you were talking to someone who hadn't gone through it yet, it would be advice that you would give them?
Yes, I would absolutely. One thing when you get into the flying world, there's a lot of egos out there, and you will have clashes with flight instructors Uh, and what I would say is put those personal differences aside and focusing on your end goal. I remember I went up and I flew with an instructor and I had a really hard time landing the airplane. And so I complained about it to Tommy and he goes, sounds to me like it was a person behind the controls. So I learned real quick is just if you're, having a hard time, don't blame the instructor and just realize that they're human. And there is, a lot of pilots are type A personalities. And so, yeah, there is and some of what it takes to be a good pilot is probably a little bit of overconfidence. And so just learning how to work with all the egos and the personalities, um, that will serve you well to learn that in flight school because when you get out into the professional market, you will run into those kind of people, and that will really help you to learn that. So that was one thing that was a big surprise to me. The other one was um, I didn't realize how hard it would be to learn how to land that airplane. So that took a while to learn. So I'm like,
My
how do
my
you do
trick
it? Just
anytime I had a student that was having a hard time landing the plane, I had one technique that worked every single time. I would tell them
hmm
I wanted them to get down to 4 feet above the runway, and I wanted
hmm
them to fly the entire distance of the runway at around 4 feet above the runway. And once they kind of settled in, I would just reach over and pull the
Mhm.
power back the rest of the way, and the plane would settle down onto the runway as they were still trying to hold it at 4 feet. And I said, there you go.
Oh,
That's the
wow.
secret.
That's
Try
yeah,
not to land
that's awesome. That's
because eventually
yeah.
gravity will win.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Anyway,
great. That's
I
awesome.
digress. So once you're done flight school, you're a newly minted commercial pilot like many, and you've got
Mhm.
250 or so hours, depending upon how many hours it took you to get to that certificate. And then you have to make decisions about where you're going to go to build your time. Now, what did you do once you became, you got your commercial certificate? Did you go the CFI path? And if not, what did you do?
So I didn't go the CFI. I would have loved to have gone, and that's one thing I wished I had what I had now. Now that I've got my own kids, it'd be kind of cool to teach them how to fly.
Hmm.
But I didn't have the time, and so I got to a crossroad, and I had to decide: am I going to get my multi-engine, or am I going to go for my CFI? And one piece of advice that I got that was super valuable is nobody's going to hire you for ratings you don't have, especially in the corporate world. Nobody's going to say, "Hey, I've got this job. Call me when you get your multi or you get your commercial, and we'll hire you." Absolutely nobody will do that for you. You get your ratings, then the opportunities start showing up. So
Hmm.
I decided to go for it. Um, I did my multi-engine add-on, multi-engine instrument commercial, and I was also running a business, so I didn't really have the time to teach. And I got that, and then 5 days later, I got a job on a Citation Bravo, flying right seat. I didn't pay anything, but the people we were flying wanted two pilots, and the guy I was flying with was an MEI, and he could fly with the Bravo. You can either fly a single pilot or two pilots, and so that was awesome. So I got that, did that trip, and then right after that, I got offered a right seat in a Hawker as a contractor, and that was with actually with Tommy. That was that it was he's really helped me out quite a bit. And I got into Hawker. I had about close to 500 hours, I think, when I got in the Hawker right seat in the Hawker. I didn't know anything what I was doing, but he was a strong captain, and I learned a lot, flying
Hmm.
that. So we also my dad and I bought the Atlanta for our business, and we did our nature of our business is we did work around the country, so we would use the airplane to go to our commercial job sites, and so I started building time that way. And then my dad announced his retirement, and I thought this is a good time for me to switch to flying because I wanted to fly. The more I did it, I just loved it. It was so amazing.
Hmm.
And I had made a post on Facebook, a, a picture of the DFW airport actually, and it was when I was flying the Hawker. To my buddy Tommy had taken a picture, so he had sent it to me. I posted it, and a friend of mine that I hadn't talked to in probably might have been a couple years. He wrote on there. He said, "I got a guy looking for a pilot. Give me a call." I called him, and that's how I got this job. And it was this company. He said this company is he's looking to buy an airplane. He said, "I don't know what it is. What it is. It's either an EnvisionJet or TBM or something." He said,
Hmm.
"But here's his number. Give him a call." And so I did call him, and I had to call him. I don't know how many times, but I called him for I think it was a week straight, every single day till I got through to him. And my friend that had given me his number said, "This is how you have to reach this guy. He's so busy." And then they reached out to me. We sat down. I said, first they said, "Well, we'd like to hire you," and they didn't know anything about me. I said, "Well, I think it'd be kind of good if we would just get together and meet." So I sat down with them, with him and his wife, and we started talking. And it was a very large company. And I told him, I said, "I've only got 600 hours, so I'm really not qualified to fly this airplane." They were buying the Vision Jet, and the owner looks at me. He goes, "Well, the airplane's not going to be here till August." And I'll figure it out. And then I told him, I said, really? I said, what you guys need is a chief pilot. Companies your size. And his wife's like, man, that'd be so awesome. I said, I have this guy that I think he'd be really good. And I'll give you his number. And that was Tommy. So
Hmm.
Tommy met with them. They hired Tommy to be the chief pilot. And then Tommy hired me, but he set some stipulations on me. He goes, you need to be at 1,000 hours. He goes, you're 600 hours. That ain't enough. 650 or whatever I was, almost 700. I don't remember exactly. He goes, you're getting ready. You're getting in the major leagues here. And
Hmm.
but there were some struggles. I had a lot of false starts along the way. At first, the insurance company wasn't happy with my time, and then I wasn't going to get the job. So I went out and I bought a Mooney, and I just started flying around the country. And I put about 300 hours on that Mooney. I got to 1,000, and then they were like, "Well, 1,000 isn't enough." That's one thing about this industry is it's always a moving target.
Hmm.
You know, you think I get to 1,000, I can get a job. I've heard guys. I've said this. You get to 500 hours, you can get a job. You get to 500, nope. I'm sorry, you need 1,000 hours. I got to
Hmm.
1,000. They're like, that's not enough. You need to have. I don't remember what the number was. 1,500. And this was during the pilot shortage. So uh, Tommy encouraged me. He said, "Don't give up." He said, "Just hold tight." He said, "Don't sign any contracts. Keep trying to build time." And then it did. The job did come back around. They were able to work things out with insurance. I had 1,050 hours when I got hired, and then I went to school and got type rated on the Vision Jet.
So,
Um, so that felt great to be able to give back a little bit to Tommy, help him get this
hmm.
job a little bit. Obviously, I didn't really have to do much to help him. He had the qualifications, so he got the job. But it was through word of mouth that
Hmm.
these jobs don't. It's really hard to find. I've heard you say this, and it's absolutely true. Most 91 flight departments are not very good, and there's a few that are just outstanding. And this is one of the best ones out there.
Hmm.
But we built it. Tommy and I built this thing from the ground up. And then when I got hired, I immediately rolled up my sleeves. I started working, doing everything I could. I didn't have the flight experience, but I had the leadership, I had the business knowledge. And then I started bringing that into the flight department and helping Tommy build this thing. And we built it to a really amazing flight department. That was a lot of fun to build it to what it is. We have 8 pilots, 1 mechanic. Um, We offer our guys 7 days on, 7 days off, which is unheard of in a 91 world for schedule.
Hmm.
And we pay very well. If somebody wants to do the bare minimum, they're not going to make that much money here. But if they want to go above and beyond and work hard, we will pay them exceptionally well. We will pay them in the 75% range
Hmm.
or more. So we reward hard work and somebody that's just eager to work.
I wanted to let you know that I've recently started another YouTube channel. It is called Invest with Trent. It is all about investing in commercial real estate, something that I've had a tremendous amount of success doing over the last couple of years. To learn more and join the weekly newsletter, visit investwithtrent.com. So, a couple of key takeaways there. Number one is the value of persistence. Even though you got an introduction, you still had to call and you had to call and you had to call, and then the job wasn't available, and then it was available, and so I think that's one of the takeaways I'd like my audience to get is the value of persistence. I think the other thing that's important
Mhm.
to understand that aviation is really ruled by insurance companies. They make the rules.
It is.
So because
Mhm.
no matter whether you're Part 91, Part 135, whatever, if you can't get insurance, airplanes aren't going to be in the air, and they have the ultimate say on whether a pilot's got enough time and so forth. So that will come as a rude surprise to some people who don't necessarily
Mhm.
understand that early on in their careers. So hopefully, as you're listening to this, you will not end up being rudely surprised by that at some point in your career. So, what do we
The
know? We're almost.
insurance, the underwriters are they drive everything, and I got a chance. NBAA is a good organization, and so through the insurance company, I got invited to a party where they had the underwriters there. So the underwriters drive the insurance. So you have your broker, and a lot of times the underwriters, they don't want to tell you what the hours and where things are because they're so afraid of people coming in and pencil whipping it and be like, well, how many hours do I need to have?
Hmm.
And so they look at the pilot as a whole. It is very much, they make it based on how well they like you, how well they like the chief pilot. There's a lot of uh, things that go on with the insurance companies. So, and to be fair, one point I forgot is the persistence with going with that pursuing that CEO. I was very respectful. I wasn't rude at all. I would text him and then I'd try to call him, and so it wasn't. I was just very respectful. Um, the persistence, didn't show any kind of didn't get upset. Like so
Yeah.
that's important to do if you're going to be persistent. Is be very patient, but don't give up,
Hmm.
and don't get upset if they don't. If you lose a job, thank them for it. Thank them for the opportunity, and start looking for something else.
Hmm. Yeah, because you also never know when that, let's say you miss out on a job, they hire somebody else.
Yes.
That somebody else doesn't work out. Now they're back to the drawing board,
Hmm.
and if you made a good impression, maybe you're getting a phone call that you wouldn't get if you were less than professional, or you just did something because you were thinking short term instead of thinking long term.
Hmm.
All right. So before we round out and finish up, we've talked about your time building, your particular path, maybe not super easy to replicate. Not everybody can go buy a Mooney and afford to put the fuel in it and
Right.
fly around and so forth. So if you were giving advice to someone who maybe couldn't do that about time building in particular, because it is such a challenge for so many new pilots,
Right.
is there anything that comes to mind?
I would recommend to go the CFI route. I think that's the best time building out there, especially in the times we're in right now.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the best way to go. Mine was a unique situation, and that's just the opportunities that was afforded to me. But I would highly recommend going the CFI route. That to me is you learn a lot. It's just super valuable to have that experience. So that's what I would tell. I don't. I think being a skydiver pilot, pipeline pilot, um, they're this is just my opinion. Pilots all have strong opinions, but I don't think that's good quality time, especially if you want to go to the corporate or to the airlines, because all we do in the corporate side is you fly instruments all day long. That's all you do.
Yeah.
You get in the flight levels, fly instruments. You're not down low. You're not go. So to me, those jobs, if a flight instructor teaches gets you more prepared for either the corporate or the airlines.
Agree completely. The other thing I think about being a CFI as well, because that's the path that I took. If you're a busy
Mhm.
CFI, you're able to log quite a bit of time every month. Versus, I know
Mhm.
there's, like as I was coming up and as I was a CFI, there was other opportunities that I saw. But at the end of the day, I would look at them and I'm like, well, I'm only going to get like 10 hours a week or 10 hours every two
Mhm.
weeks. Sure, I'm going to be flying a PC-12 or whatever, and it's a cooler airplane, but it's going to really slow down my progress of getting to my goal
Mhm.
of ATP minimums so that I could get ultimately the job that I wanted, which I did, which was getting hired by an airline. So the cooler planes aren't necessarily all they're cracked up to be unless you're not really in a hurry to build your time. All right, Noah, I want to thank you very
Totally agree.
much for being here on the show. We're going to put links to your socials down in the description. So if folks do want to reach out to you, they will be able to. And I promise you, you will get lots of people probably reaching out to you
Okay.
because that's usually what happens when I interview someone here on the show. Because like the last guy, I think with in the first week, there was 7,000 views. So we got lots of people reaching out to him.
Okay.
So I don't know how many it'll be, but it'll be a decent number would be my guess. And so again, folks, when you're reaching out, understand that Noah's a busy guy. He's got other things to do in his life other than answer your questions. So just as he said in this video, be patient, be professional, be polite, and I'm sure you'll get your answers. So again, Noah, thank you very much for taking some time to come and be on the show.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. And hopefully this helps somebody else. So
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to get a hold of Noah, again, his social links are going to be down in the video description. As we said during the episode, he's probably going to get a lot of people reaching out to him. So if he doesn't reply to you right away, please be patient, be professional, and be polite. And if you have questions, of course, you can leave those down in the comments for either myself or Noah, as we'll be happy to provide you with an answer. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you smash the like button. And if this is your first time watching a video here on the Fly with Trent channel and you don't want to miss future videos like this, just go ahead and become a subscriber here on YouTube. And you may even also want to consider joining the newsletter list. I have a weekly newsletter, which you can join at flywithtrent.com. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.